Hope y'all are having a great weekend. Welcome to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. My name is Kaylee.
My name is Desi.
Be sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit the bell next to the subscribe button to turn on post notifications. Before we get into this case, we always encourage those who have useful information to any unsolved case. Please report it to your local police and sheriff department.
If we live in a nice neighborhood where we know our neighbors, we believe we are safe. However, you never want to let your guard down even if you are in the safest place, because regardless where you live, there will always be crime. We go to sleep every night hoping to wake up, but you are never promised tomorrow. This week we will be diving right into the murder of Marilyn Sheppard.
Neurosurgeon Dr. Samuel Sheppard and Marilyn Neese tied the knot on February 1st, 1945. Their wedding was located near Lake Erie, Ohio. Dr. Sheppard and Marilyn gave birth to their child about 2 years later. Their child went by the nickname Chip. Look, everyone always wants to believe. It was said that they had a very happy marriage. The Sheppards lived in a tight-knit community.
July 3rd, 1954, the Sheppards threw a neighborhood get-together with drinks, dinner, and a movie. Around midnight, all the guests had left and Dr. Sheppard fell asleep on the couch. The hours between then and 5:40 a.m. remain a mystery. 5:40 a.m. on 4th of July, Mayor Spencer Houk received a phone call from Dr. Sheppard. He said, quote-unquote, "Oh my God, Spence, get over here quickly. I think they have killed Marilyn," then hung up.
Mayor Houk and his wife Esther rushed to Sheppard's house. Houk found Dr. Sheppard speechless. It is tough for anyone to lose their spouse. First responders arrived at the house around 6 a.m. According to the police report, her body was found lying upwards facing towards the door. She had multiple gashes to her head and face. Both the sheets and walls were covered with blood. She was partially unclothed.
An autopsy determined her death was around 4:30 a.m. At the time of her death, Marilyn was 4 months pregnant with a little baby boy. Sheppard recalls Marilyn screaming his name for help that early morning. He ran upstairs to find a white form attacking his wife. He went to fight it and got knocked in the back of the head. Sheppard went to check on his son, Chip. Chip was safe. He chased the white form to the back door down to Lake Erie.
He says it choked him out, thus causing him to pass out on the beach. He woke up on the beach, shirtless, missing his watch. Police arrived at the scene that morning. Unfortunately, Dr. Sheppard was the only witness to her murder. He was also the most plausible suspect at the time, especially since during the 50s, women were treated as property.
The most popular theory is that Dr. Sheppard murdered his own wife, and that he made up the entire story. Unlike most break-ins, there was no sign of forced entry, and the deaths were neat, not scattered. Coroner Sam Gerber says the way her blood was spattered was like they had used a surgical instrument. Dr. Sheppard was indeed a neurosurgeon.
Gerber found Sheppard's watch, key, and frat ring covered in blood outside in a plain white bag. Many believe Sheppard had an affair with a woman, one being Susan Hayes, a lab tech at the hospital. Media headlines jumped on the ship early, July 20th, and posted an article stating, "Someone is getting away with murder."
July 21st, another article headline read, "Why no inquest? Do it now, Dr. Herber." Later that day, Dr. Herber called in an inquest and subpoenaed Dr. Sheppard to attend. The event lasted for 3 days, and Herbert asked Sheppard, quote-unquote, "Did you and Susan Hayes at any time sleep in the same bed?" End quote. Sam said he did not.
July 30th, 1954, Dr. Sheppard was arrested for his wife's murder. He was charged with first-degree murder of Marilyn Sheppard. The trial began October 18, 1954. Heavy media pressure and Dr. Herbert's investigation details at the scene put all odds against Dr. Sheppard. After denial, when Susan Hayes took the mic, Dr. Sheppard finally admitted to his affair.
Many stated that Dr. Sheppard was a shallow man. On December 16th, the jury claimed he was guilty of second-degree murder of his wife. His sentence would be life and possible parole in 10 years. Sheppard's mother, Ethel, committed suicide a couple weeks later. His father died of a broken heart after Ethel killed herself. In 1963, Marilyn's father committed suicide.
Even after Dr. Sheppard was convicted, his brothers were still supportive of him. They hired a forensic scientist, Dr. Paul Leland Kirk. They said Gerber failed to submit fingerprint or blood evidence for Marilyn's death. The judge said to this, Dr. Sheppard did it. It's obvious the doctor did it, end quote. In 1961, the brothers hired a new attorney, F. Lee Bailey.
Bailey states Judge Edward Blithen failed to move the trial at Cleveland. Bailey also says that Blithen used the trial for his own gains for the re-election. Dorothy Kilgallen states she had an unauthorized conversation with Blithen. She says he said, quote-unquote, the case was open and shut. He is guilty as hell, end quote. If she reported it at the beginning, he would have been removed from the case.
October 24, 1966, there was a new trial for the case. Kirk says that according to the blood splatter, the blood would have covered the killer in the victim's blood. Dr. Sheppard only had one spot on his pants. He even says that according to the blood spot on his pants, it indicated that the killer was left-handed. Sam was right-handed.
He saw that Marilyn's teeth were broken and fallen off near her foot. This indicated she bit the killer. Dr. Sheppard had no bite marks or wounds. The blood that was tested on the door did not match Marilyn or her husband, meaning that they were not alone, which leads into the next theory that Dr. Sheppard did not lie.
Dr. Sheppard says the white form was bushy. 3 other people recall seeing this white form. The knitters, Richard and Betty, state they saw this white form near the house between the hours of 3:30 and 4 a.m.
They described this mystery form as a 32 to 42-year-old white male. He had a thick auburn crew-cut hair with thick eyebrows and sideburns. Nurses did talk about the injuries Dr. Sheppard had fighting the attacker. It was clear Sheppard had been in the water for a while. An x-ray showed Dr. Sheppard sustained a fracture on his second cervical vertebrae.
This all lines up with Dr. Sheppard's story. Doctors state that there's no way Sheppard could have faked these injuries. Chip the son had spent years trying to solve the death of this case. He believed Richard Erbeling was responsible for her murder. Erbeling was their handyman. He knew all the ins and outs of the house. He passed the polygraph test when they questioned him about her murder, so he was ruled out.
However, a witness states that Eberling confessed to the murder at his deathbed in detail. She says he said he killed her and hit her husband with a pail on the back of his head, then stated, quote-unquote, the bitch bit the hell out of me, end quote.
There are only 2 other suspects, one being Esther Houk. They said the murder could have only been committed by another woman, that Marilyn had an affair with her husband. She got jealous and murdered Marilyn. She was left-handed, but there was no concrete evidence. The last suspect was Major James Call.
Bernard Connors, ex-FBI agent, said he believed Call was responsible for her death. Call was an ex-pilot who went crazy and went on a crime spree during 1954. Call had a crowbar which could be used to break in. He also had a bite mark on his left index finger. They questioned him, but didn't really push for it. To this day, we do not know who murdered Marilyn. It could be her husband, a jealous bitch, a crazy madman, or even the Sheppard's handyman. How true is Dr. Sheppard's story? I believe that since there were a couple witnesses that saw like a white form and all stuff, I believe his story could very possibly be true, for sure. Especially since we have other witnesses who saw, maybe not the same thing, but a white form around their house around a certain time, close to the time of death for Marilyn. It could be 50-50. It could definitely be true, or it could be twisted in a way to where they saw this person, but maybe the person didn't go inside or anything. They were just maybe lurking around, and Dr. Sheppard could have easily used this as an excuse to try and get away with murder. But can't really rule it out.
The way he does describe it does seem like something you would find out of a Hollywood movie. You know, you see this crazy white form that is murdering your own spouse, and you just see a white form. You don't have any clear-cut description of the man, except for his son did end up having kind of a description of what he believed was the man. I do want to mention that the knitters, their neighbors, did also see this white form as well. It is possible that Dr. Sheppard was truly telling the truth. It's really hard saying though, because the time it happened and the circumstances, but because his son was able to give a description of this man and the knitters also saw it as well, I feel like his son would likely not lie about that. That was his own mother who was killed. He could very well be telling the truth. Next question is, did Dr. Sheppard murder his own wife? If so, why? It is possible that even if there was this white form, this other guy as well, that he could have still murdered his own wife. He could have hired someone to stage as a robber or whatever and try to make it look like a break-in and have them kill his wife. And the reason why he wanted his wife dead is maybe she found out about his affair with the lab technician Susan Hayes, and maybe she got jealous about that, and that made their marriage kind of unstable. And instead of ending the marriage and divorce and doing all the paperwork, it was just easier for him to hire someone out to kill his own wife.
Another reason why he could have possibly murdered his own wife, going back on one of the theories that we mentioned, if Marilyn was having an affair with somebody's husband and Dr. Sheppard had found out, he could have premeditated her murder and all stuff because he didn't want her leaving him. Or because in that case, most of the time when that happens, they do have to, split things half and half because they are married, and they do have to split custody, and it's like a whole huge battle basically. So that could be another reason why he murdered his own wife. Or like you said, he could have hired someone to do it, or there could have been a different motive altogether.
What's also even weird as well is that his stuff was found in a bush in a white bag, and it was his ring, his watch, and all that stuff, and that was covered in blood. So even though he only had one blood stain on his pants, the fact that he had some blood stains on his ring and his watch, and they were placed in a bag. If somebody truly broke in, I don't think they would be placed in a bag. So that kind of makes it seem like maybe he was trying to hide some evidence of him truly being responsible.
Yeah, because typically, in robberies and all that stuff, they go for jewelry and all that stuff. They don't leave that stuff behind. They take it with them and they sell it. How coincidental is this?
Yeah, and this is early in the morning, so they would have easily been able to get away with
enough time.
Yeah. So why would they just leave it outside? That would just make it look.
If there was a white form, who was it? Chip the Sun believes it was Richard Eberling. If there was indeed a white form, like Dr. Sheppard and his neighbors keep saying, it could be anybody. They could have been in a disguise, dressed up in a white suit. Anything is very possible. Just depends. This could have been a random killing, premeditated, anything like that. But it could very well be Richard Eberling, or it could even be Dr. Sheppard himself. He could have very easily dressed up in white or in a white suit and went outside, correlate with this story that people saw this white form that he said he saw just to make himself look not so guilty.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you do mention that he could have dressed up as that himself. And so obviously no one would have been able to get a clear picture of who this white form was, so that he could have been that. His son could also have been telling the truth that it was Richard Erbeling. Maybe even Dr. Sheppard hired Erbeling because Erbeling was their handyman, and so obviously no one would expect the handyman to be involved in the murder, and so he could have hired Erbeling. Erbeling knew how to get in and out of the house, and you can pass the polygraph test but still be guilty. No one would suspect Erbeling, so Erbeling could have been this white form. Why did Dr. Sheppard lie about cheating on his wife to the public? Then later on he admits that he did indeed cheat on her. When the inquest first came out and Gerber asked if Dr. Sheppard had slept with Susan Hayes, he denied it. But then when Susan Hayes took the mic, she started calling him out, and he eventually admitted to cheating on his wife. I think one of the reasons why Dr. Sheppard lied about cheating on his wife to the public is because maybe he felt like if he admitted it, it would just make him seem more guilty, and that'd be more of a reason for him to kill his wife, and that would make it a much easier conviction, because maybe he was just done with his wife and his wife found out and she was very angry, so it gave him a motive to kill her, which would definitely help the court rule him as guilty. So that might be why he lied about cheating on his wife. Also, nobody ever wants to admit when they cheat on someone because it just looks bad, and it basically is gonna run the future of any relationships with anyone. And he was also in the public eye. All eyes were on him, so if he admitted to cheating on his wife, even if he didn't kill her, it would still look very bad on his part.
I definitely think he lied about cheating on his wife just to make himself appear innocent, like he had never done anything, and then later on admitted that he lied just because he knew it would eventually get out, and thought that if he got ahead of it, maybe he could kind of turn it around and put a positive spin on it. But in reality, it ended up going more against him. Did someone break in the home, even though there was no signs of a break-in? I feel like if this truly was a break-in, there would be some sort of sign that they had gotten through the door or the windows. The only reason why there would be no signs of a break-in would be that it wasn't technically a break-in, or it could have been somebody that they let in that they knew and that they didn't suspect that was going to rob them or murder their wife, of course. But I truly believe somebody didn't break into the home. I feel like it was somebody who could have known their way around the house and how to get in, or it was somebody that was already in the house.
Most break-ins, you're gonna see like a broken window, or you're gonna see stuff scattered around, or a TV missing, because they're gonna go for the stuff that is gonna sell the most, or you're gonna see like a door broken in or whatever. And there was really no evidence of anything broken in. The cabinets were all kept neatly, and especially since Dr. Sheppard was a neurosurgeon, he clearly had a ton of money, so if anybody were to break into his home, they would have probably taken jewelry and stuff like that. They would have taken a lot more. They would have just not, broken in just to kill her. The only other way I can think of if someone did break in, it would have to be someone who really knew them or was in the house, like you said. So it could have been either the handyman or it could have been a neighbor even. Why did Dr. Sheppard call the mayor before calling 911 when he found his wife dead? This is like the biggest question I have, because I feel like if I ever found someone dead, I wouldn't be like, oh, I need to call the mayor up. No, I would be calling 911 and trying to do CPR, because clearly that is what you're supposed to do. I don't understand why Dr. Sheppard decided to call the mayor instead of 911. That was really bad on his part. Even if he was innocent, that was terrible on his part. That is also what makes this case a little bit suspicious too. If Dr. Sheppard knew someone or he did it, it would be dumb for him to call 911 right away. He would eventually have to. But maybe he called the mayor because he was on good terms with the mayor and maybe knew that he might have been able to get away with it by calling the mayor first.
Yeah, it is a little suspicious. If you was a normal person, you would call 911 first. Get the ambulance here and everything, but nah, instead you call a family friend. That's curbside cover up to me. Could the wife's mare Esther have killed Marilyn? Did Marilyn have an affair with her husband? It is very possible that if Marilyn was indeed having an affair with her husband, the mayor, who was indeed a family friend of hers and her husband's, murder is very possible from Esther, because a woman is capable of anything when she is scorned and when she is betrayed. She will go fucking crazy. And she could kill a bitch. It's very possible. We've seen it time and time again where sometimes wives do murder the mistresses, and in some cases do even murder their husbands as well as the mistress. But anything is possible. Anybody is capable of anything, including murder. You can't exclude anybody out ever.
Yeah, and when you're in that state of mind, whenever, like, if your spouse has an affair with someone else, your mind is not going to be clear. You're going to be very mad and not in the best state, and so you might not make the best decisions. And like you said, many times, women have gotten very jealous of each other, and they can do some really horrific things to each other just over a damn man.
These men ain't worth it though, honey. Ain't no worth it.
Could Marilyn have been one of the people Major James Call had murdered? It was noted he went AWOL and went on a killing spree. So Major James Call, he was an ex-pilot that went crazy and went on a string killing spree. It was noted that he did have a crowbar, which he could have used to break in. It was also noted that he was left-handed, and according to a lot of the coroners, they believe that the killer was left-handed. So he could have very well went in and killed her. He also had a bite mark on his index finger. That could be a coincidence, though. That doesn't necessarily mean that because he has the bite mark and because some of Marilyn's teeth fell out does not necessarily mean that he was the one that murdered her. That could have been from another victim he had. But it is a little bit suspicious. He could be a potential suspect because he probably did not confess to all of his killings. He does definitely fit a little bit of this description of what happened to Marilyn, but so do some of the other suspects that we have mentioned.
Another thing that I wanted to notate, going back on what you said about the killer being left-handed, even though they thought the killer was left-handed, the killer could have also been ambidextrous, which is when neither of your hands are the dominant hand, like both of them are dominant hands. So if they, per se, had found somebody to be ambidextrous, one of the suspects and all that stuff, they could very easily be the killer as well.
And also, some people can be trained a certain way as well, because I know that in some schools they used to pressure some of the kids who were left-handed. They did pressure them to try to write with their right hand. So even though some of these suspects say that they're right-handed, they could have actually grown up to be so-called right-handed but truly been left-handed.
Was her murder premeditated? I feel like there's a 50-50 chance that her murder was premeditated. It could have been a spur-of-the-moment murder, but it also very well could have been premeditated depending on who actually killed her.
Yeah, it depends who killed her. If it was the ex-pilot James Call, obviously that was just a random killing. Now, if it was the mayor's wife Esther, that would definitely probably be premeditated, because obviously she had the motive to kill Marilyn because Marilyn had an affair with her husband. If it was Marilyn's own husband, Dr. Sheppard, that would be premeditated, because either his wife found out that he was cheating and she was really upset, threatening with divorce, and he didn't want to go that route, which is most likely. So if Sheppard hired the handyman, Sheppard would have been the one that premeditated, but he hired out. So yeah, that would be premeditated too. Who do we believe murdered Marilyn Sheppard? So I have a few theories. The first biggest theory I really believe is that Dr. Sheppard's wife heard about the affair he was having with Susan Hayes, and she was threatening him with divorce. And at this time, men treated women as property, and they were very controlling. And he didn't want to go through the whole process of divorce and all that stuff, and so he hired out the handyman to kill Marilyn. Or he made up the whole white form and just dressed as that and did this whole big show. He directly killed her. But I do believe it was more along the lines he hired somebody out. I don't believe as much about the theory about Esther having killed Marilyn, because even though women can go crazy, there's just a lack of concrete evidence. Yes, she's left-handed, but that was really the only evidence. And I feel like there would be a lot more evidence if she truly did kill Marilyn. The last suspect that it could be, which is the least likely, is Major James Houk. The reason why I believe he's the least suspect is because, sure, yes, he had a crowbar, and yes, he went on a killing spree and all this stuff. In 1954, there was just not a whole lot of concrete evidence. Even though he kind of seems, to loosely fit the description, it just doesn't seem like a perfect match.
I feel like it's definitely less likely to be him, because everything, as far as evidence-wise and all that stuff goes, doesn't seem to match up to it being him for sure. I feel like it'd be more likely if it was Dr. Sheppard, or even Richard Erdling, the handyman, or Esther, the mayor's wife, then it would be James Paul for sure.
Yeah, I agree.
I personally feel like it could be any of the three suspects I just named, but I'm leaning more towards it being Dr. Sheppard, or it could be Dr. Sheppard and Richard, and the fact that Dr. Sheppard hired Richard to murder her, or it could have been just Esther if Marilyn was truly having an affair with her husband. Thank you for listening to another episode of Murders, Mysteries, and More. Remember to always keep your eyes open, because you never know when someone's creeping.